I'll never forget the morning I learned that, apparently, you can own a house for almost 2 centuries and still get a bill from a bunch of suburban vigilantes who think you owe them a white picket fence tax. I mean, imagine this. You're sipping coffee on your porch, taking in that fresh country air, and boom, a letter shows up threatening to take your home unless you fork over 12 grand to a club you never joined. Welcome to my life. Let me set the scene. 3 years ago, I inherited this creaky old farmhouse from my great-aunt. We're talking original wide plank floors, windows that actually open, a barn that's more authentic than any farmhouse chic Pinterest board, and gardens that haven't seen a weed whacker since Ronald Reagan was president. 5 acres of history, surrounded on 3 sides by one of those planned developments, endless beige boxes, identical mailboxes, lawns so perfect you're scared to sneeze on them. You know the type. Now my house, she's stubborn. Stands alone, bright barn red, refuses to match the neutral palette of her new neighbors. I checked every scrap of paperwork before moving in. Deed, land survey, taxes, the whole deal. Not a hint of HOA. My driveway runs out to the county road, and my water comes from a well older than most people's family trees. I liked it that way. Apparently, though, this didn't sit well with the self-appointed queen of conformity next door. Let's call her Linda. Linda, oh boy. Picture a woman who probably irons her dish towels and schedules her kids' playdates down to the minute. She's president of the HOA, and she's got a clipboard for every occasion. First time she walked up my driveway, clipboard in hand, lips pursed tight enough to whistle through, she told me my old fence was an eyesore, and I had 30 days to replace it with a white vinyl monstrosity. I laughed and told her, as politely as I could muster before coffee, sorry, not my circus, not my HOA. She didn't find it funny. The months rolled on. I'd get passive-aggressive comments. That barn red really stands out, doesn't it? But most folks seemed fine with my place. A few even thanked me for not giving in. But Linda and her inner circle glared at me like I was personally tanking their property values every time I dared plant tomatoes. Then, just as suddenly, the snide remarks stopped. For half a year, nothing. I thought, hey, maybe she's found a new shrub height offender to harass. Spoiler, she hadn't. She was just preparing her masterstroke. It all kicked off one Tuesday morning, that kind of golden September sunlight where you feel like life might cut you a break. My mail carrier hands me this fat, official-looking envelope from a law firm I've never heard of. You know when the return address alone is enough to make your stomach drop. Yeah, that. I opened it right there on the porch, figuring it was a mistake or some junk about car insurance. Wrong. It was a notice of lien, $12 for 100 in unpaid HOA dues, architectural noncompliance fines, legal fees. The works. 3 years of delinquent payments to an HOA that didn't exist when my house was built. They were threatening to foreclose. I laughed, because what else do you do when faced with that kind of absurdity? But the more I read, the less funny it got. The letter was filed with the county. It listed out every charge in agonizing detail. Monthly dues, late fees, penalties for my red paint, my wild garden, my fence, all for a club that wasn't mine. And it was real. This wasn't just Linda playing queen bee. Someone had filed a legal claim against my house. So I called the law firm. The paralegal who answered spoke to me like I was a deadbeat who'd just blown his 3rd mortgage. She told me to take it up with the HOA, and refused to listen when I said I wasn't a member. Fine. Next call, the HOA management company. After the world's most frustrating phone tree, I get some guy who says, get this, my driveway connects to their road, so I'm automatically included. Never mind that the road's a county road that predates their entire development by 150 years. Irrelevant, he says, because the rules changed when the neighborhood came in. Sure, buddy. That night, my wife came home, and we combed through every scrap of paperwork I owned. Date. Check. No mention of any HOA. Survey. Clearly shows my property is its own island. Land grant from 1845? Still there. The facts were clear. Linda and her friends were full of it. But here's the kicker. Even with all that proof, the lien was real. County records don't care if the claim's bogus. It's on the books until you clear it. If I ever wanted to sell or refinance, this mess would haunt me. So I decided, time to face the music. Thursday night, I marched into the monthly HOA meeting. The community center smelled like burnt coffee and cheap carpet. About 20 folks in folding chairs, most looking like they'd take the job of assistant to the regional assistant secretary, way too seriously. Linda was perched at the head table, grinning like she'd just won bingo. Public comment time. I stood up, introduced myself, explained there must be a mistake, that my house was never in the HOA, and that I had the documents to prove it. Linda cuts me off before I even finish. Sir, the lien is legitimate. You owe us. I asked to see any proof my land was part of their neighborhood. She waves me off. It's in our archives, but you don't need to see it. She repeats that my driveway means I have to comply. I asked her how a house built in 1845 could be subject to rules created in 2002. Irrelevant, she says. Again. She threatens foreclosure if I don't pay. And suddenly it clicks. They're not just mistaken. They're banking on intimidation. They think I'll pay up rather than fight. This isn't about garden aesthetics or red paint. This is about power, using the law or the appearance of it to bully someone out of what they love. That's when I stopped feeling nervous and started getting angry. The next day, I took all my papers to the county recorder's office. The clerk was a gem, helped me pull every document since 1845. Turns out, when the planned community was built, they approached my great-aunt about selling. She told them where they could stick it, and they built around her. The development map explicitly excluded my property from the HOA boundaries. There was a bright line drawn right at my fence. But, plot twist, 2 years ago, someone filed a document annexing my property into the HOA. Supposedly signed by me, notarized by their secretary. Only problem, I'd never signed a thing. It was a forgery. Straight up old school. Grabbed the whiteout and a fake notary stamp fraud. At that moment, the story changed from bureaucratic headache to crime thriller. I copied everything, went home, and invited Linda and the board for a settlement talk. I played dumb, said I wanted to clear things up amicably, and asked them to come out and show me which parts of my property they thought they controlled. Linda brought the whole posse, thinking she could overwhelm me. What she didn't know was that I'd set my phone to record the whole conversation. State law says as long as one party knows, it's fair game. She strutted around pointing out my violations, but when pressed for documentation, she clammed up. When I asked about the forged annexation form, she got flustered, repeated that it didn't matter, and that the board had voted to include me because it's only fair everyone pays. When I pressed harder, she admitted, on tape, that there was no legal basis, no real authority, just a decision by the board because, well, they felt like it. I had all I needed. Next step, lawyer up. My attorney was floored by the audacity. He recommended we hit them with everything. A civil suit for slander of title, a petition to quiet title, a criminal complaint for fraud. The sheriff's department took it seriously, too. Turns out forging a legal document with a notary public involved is a felony, especially when the notary isn't even properly licensed, which, surprise, the HOA secretary wasn't. Word started to spread in the HOA community. Linda, it turned out, had used HOA funds, her neighbor's money, to pay for legal fees related to her crusade against me. That didn't sit well. Soon, residents were asking why their emergency fund was getting drained to harass the weirdo in the red farmhouse. 6 weeks in, the county attorney issued a ruling. The lien was void ab initio, legal speak for should never have existed. Not only was it removed, but declared invalid from the get-go. Even better, the DA pressed charges against Linda and her secretary for fraud and filing false claims. But the real popcorn moment came at the next HOA meeting. The community, tired of legal bills and scandal, revolted. The treasurer laid out how Linda had authorized everything without board approval, and how much of the HOA's money had gone down the drain. Residents shouted. Someone asked how an 180-year-old house could be annexed by a 20-year-old HOA. Another pointed out that the county road was there before any of them. Linda tried to spin it, but the dam had burst. The vote to remove her from the board was unanimous. Well, except for Linda's own vote. The new board, much humbler, reached out to me with a formal apology. They settled my legal bills, admitted in writing that my property was never in their HOA, and sent a letter to every resident setting the record straight. Meanwhile, Linda and the secretary took plea deals, probation, community service, and, delicious irony, a public apology. You'd think I'd just move on, but I'm a little petty. To commemorate the victory, I hired a blacksmith to build a wrought iron gate for my driveway, big, bold, and historically appropriate. On the arch, established 1845, not a member of any HOA. Most of my neighbors loved it. A few stopped to chat about the farmhouse's history. Even the new HOA board wrote to say they appreciated the style. So here's what all that taught me. People like Linda count on you being tired, intimidated, or just not wanting a fight. They weaponize bureaucracy, knowing most folks would rather pay up than wrangle with paperwork and meetings and lawyers. But sometimes, if you stand up, the bully's the one who falls. Most folks, I learned, are decent. They want things to be fair, they just don't want to rock the boat. But when they see what's really going on, when they learn their money's being wasted and their trust abused, they'll do the right thing. And Karma, she's got a great sense of timing. Now, every so often, I'll see Linda driving past. She doesn't make eye contact anymore. The gate stands there, a permanent not today Satan for any future would-be dictators. My house is safe, my garden's wild as ever, and the red paint shines a little brighter. In the end, the lesson hit me like a cold bucket of well water. Property rights, justice, these things only mean something if you're willing to defend them, even when it's exhausting, even when it's ridiculous. And yeah, I got my happy ending. But here's the question I still chew on sometimes, looking out at that iron gate. If someone with power decides they want what you have, how far should you go to defend it? Where's the line between standing up for yourself and just becoming another player in the game? I'm curious, what would you have done in my shoes? Ever tangled with an HOA or a power-hungry neighbor? Tell me your story. Where's the line between community standards and plain old bullying? And what does justice look like when the odds are stacked against you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear how you'd handle it, or how you have. Maybe together, we'll figure out where justice really lives.